beautiful day for a motorcycle ride.
Howdy y'all, Fuzzy Biker here in the new Fuzzy Biker Garage. Look what we got here today. This is going to be our ride. Look at that hot rod, isn't that something? There's a Classic 350 over there. This is the old version, the Royal Enfield Classic 500. Kind of an interesting bike. This is a 2017 model, 499cc, overhead valves. That means the cam's down here somewhere. No valve adjustments on this because it's got hydraulic tappets in here. Air cooled, of course. big old single. It's got electric start right there and a kick start. So if you feel like kicking, you got it. Oil filters right there. It's got that really nifty RE wing right there. They made these bikes for decades like this. I mean, it's earlier they made them in iron cylinders. This is the aluminum cylinder. They were really what a Royal Enfield was for a very long time, especially in the States. Excellent paint, you know, big old single cylinder, 5-speed transmission. This one's fuel injected. Early on they were carbureted. Electric start. Early on they were kickstart only. Just a really interesting machine, you know. I rode this about a little over 20 miles last night, and I just had a ball in it. And it really brought back the feeling of how it was when I was a kid, and you know, out there exploring and just kind of looking around. I rode the outskirts of this. I just moved to a new city. I rode the outskirts of the city, found some industrial areas, just kind of tooled around, had a good old time on that. But so what is the bike? 499cc, overhead valve, 8.5 to 1 compression, 27 horsepower, 31 foot-pounds of torque. That's 41 newton meters, all going through a 5-speed transmission and a chain final drive on the rear. It has telescopic forks on the front. I couldn't find a diameter, but they are covered. The travel is about 5.1 inches or about 130 millimeters. There's a big old disc on there. That is a 280 millimeter disc. That's actually one of the smaller discs. It looks bigger than that though, doesn't it? Dual piston calipers. I don't know what brand those are. Front tire is a 90-90-19. The rear tire is a 110-80-18. That's kind of an interesting thing too. And by the way, look at this, a drum brake on the back yet. Spoke wheels, of course, very classic looking. You know, it's got the nacelle here, kind of like my Classic does, or actually I should say my Classic has it just kind of like this does. You know, the small headlight, you can get a larger headlight if you want, but very, you know, you can see where this thing gets its, this is granddad to that bike, you know. You can see where that thing gets its looks when you look at it from this bike. And this particular bike has a solo seat. Seat height is supposed to be about 31.5 inches. And it felt kind of tall, but it's got a short wheelbase, and it doesn't look wide, but it is actually a little wider than I think than the 350 is. That's 800 millimeters, by the way. Wheelbase, and this is kind of cool, 53.9 inches. That is 1,370 millimeters, and I think that is just a little shorter than my 350 is. Fuel tank is 3.8 gallons. That's 14.5 liters. These are supposed to get about 85 miles a gallon. Now, wet weight on this, and this is really cool, wet weight, 412 pounds. It's 187 kilograms. That is lighter than my 350, amazingly. I keep comparing it to that bike. What I will say is that is smoother, more modern, feels like it has more even power, more pleasant to ride. It's the more mature of the bikes, I would say. This is vibey, rattly, kind of more, you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere exploring, you know, the wilderness, Indiana Jones kind of thing. But anyway, quite an interesting looking motorcycle. Look at that muffler. This goes on forever. Jumping up here, it's got the nacelle with the tiger eyes or pilot lights or whatever you want to call them. On the dash, it's very simple, just the speedometer, the odometer, fuel light over here, engine light, key. On this side, it's past the flash, high lows, blinker, horn, a little primitive choke right there, kill switch, hazard lights, horn, fuel, and the levers, of course. One thing quick to point out is you can't really see much through your mirrors except at certain RPMs, and I do like this. Isn't that just gorgeous? Little tank pads. All right, I'm going to gear up and we're going to go for a ride. Wahoo!
Little hot rod is just running like a dream. Kind of an interesting motorcycle. It's not as smooth as the 350 would be, the modern 350. This is a vestigial motorcycle. A throwback kind of from times gone by. I call it vestigial. A friend of mine calls it that. It's a motorcycle that you really want or like to have, but there's really no good reason to have them anymore because it's outdated. The good reason to have this bike is nostalgia. It's an absolutely wonderful bike in that sense. It has that feel, the look. You really get the experience of an older bike. Check out these horses over here. A couple of There's a colt in there just resting on the ground. But you get all that without having to put up with the problems of an older motorcycle. You know, this motorcycle is fuel injected, has electric start, always starts, electronic ignition. You know, it does everything like a modern motorcycle should as far as reliability goes. This is the Danish Heritage Museum here in Elk Horn, Iowa. It's really quite a museum, quite a bit to see in there. If you ever get over to Elk Horn, Iowa in west central Iowa, it's worth the trip. The bike's handling, you know, something like this, for instance. I mean, look at this. It just handles like a dream. You know, that very short wheelbase, 1370 millimeters. I think that was 53.7. That's where the 3's coming from. Around town, this thing has just been a ball. I put about 20 miles on it last night, exploring industrial areas and such. Well, you know what? We'll head over there here in a bit. So pushing it around the garage, easy. Driving it around town, a snap. Parking lot, a snap. No problem at all. 2-lane blacktops, I like it a lot, but it does vibrate. Now, in the old days, the amount of vibration this had wouldn't be too bad, but by modern standards, it really does shake you up a little bit. Look at this red tractor here. What is that? Huh. Interesting. This beautiful, magical town is Elk Horn, Iowa. Elk Horn, Iowa. 2 words. Elk Horn's claim to fame is that it's, I think, the largest Danish settlement in the Midwest, or it was at one point. And in about 1975, they completed a windmill here. The windmill is a couple hundred years old. It was from wherever Danish windmills come from. It was a relic at that point. You know, it basically came over on 1 or 2 semi-truck loads. Look at that thing. Isn't that amazing? They rebuilt the whole thing. And I think I moved here in 1976 and it was already up and running. You know what? Let's ride around here and see what we can see. But you can take tours of that thing. They actually grind flour with that on windy days or some days to celebrate their Viking heritage. There's this Viking earth house kind of here, earth lodge. And there's that windmill again. Oh, they got the back door open. Wow. Hey, let's get a good look at that, huh? The blades are spinning. Neat little park there. Make sure there's nobody behind us. Beautiful, beautiful. I like it. It's a fun little motorcycle. I would love to own it. It's an absolute hoot to ride around on. And it's really made for this kind of a thing right here. I think this is the Norse horse. This is the latest thing. Look at their library. Anyway, neat little town, neat little town. Hey, 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 another train car. Let's go back and look at that. Elk Horn. This is not the original location of these things, but this was all moved here. Check that out. Isn't that neat? You know I've been in there. I just can't remember when. You know, this motor has got such a long stroke. It's a low RPM motor, so it produces loads of torque. It just isn't very fast about it. So it always has the power, you know, it always has the torque. You know, and it seems like no matter what gear you're in, it's always ready to go. So seating on this bike, that's kind of an interesting thing too. It's a little cramped for my legs. I've got a 30-inch inseam. It isn't bad on the town rides, but when you get on the highway, you know, you start to feel it there. I did put the back foot pegs down and was able to use those. That gave me a little more room, a little more stretch. You sit almost straight up and down with just a very slight hint forward. You do have to reach to the bars. They're down low, but they're not far away. You know, you do reach them, but just slightly. Your hips and your knees are about the same level, and your heels are just slightly behind your knees, I would say. Yes, for sure. You know, it all goes back to this is an older motorcycle, and it's engineered for a different time. Maybe people were shorter back then. All right, well, let's roll on to the next town and see what else we can find. Hey, here we are trying to get on the old interstate. We are going into the wind. We just got a couple miles of this. 2 or 3 maybe, 3 miles I think. 75 miles an hour. 74, something like that. Not too darn bad. Going into the wind. All right, here's our exit. I'd like to talk about stability real quick. This bike has good primary stability. It wants to stay on its tires. Very good that way. It has a little bit of squirreliness when you get to top speed, like on the interstate going down a long hill or in a long paved road or something like that. Do I think it's a good stable platform? You're darn right I do. It's a very stable platform. Goes through the curves, it does all those things very well. I like that. Hey, we've made it back to Atlantic, Iowa, Shelburne's recreation area that way. Let's check these things out here. What are these? Hey, old Chevy, and I don't know what the other one is. Y'all know, please post. Look at that old wood building. Cass County Bridge Yard, it says. Probably 100 years old. Nifty little gravel road here. Bike handles really well on this. This is really its forte, I would say. This kind of exploring. I ran through here last night and had a ball on this bike. The wheel spin the tire on gravel. This campground is built on the edge of an old gravel pit. There's three big gravel pits over yonder that they've turned into lakes. There's no beach on them because the water gets so deep so fast. Beyond that, those giant grain bins over there, those are, each one of those holds 2 million bushels of corn. That's one of Iowa's largest ethanol plants. Hey, you can see the trail there. A little bit of the lake too. Check it out. So there's 3 of these. One here, one over yonder, over just across that barrier there, and then one over there. Little boat ramp over that way. Loads of torque. Bit of a rough road. You know, that's another thing about this bike. It's not the smoothest ride, but the seat does have springs. So you don't get the jarring effect of the bumps, even though the motorcycle does hit them, because of the springs in the seat. There's another one of those ponds. And then just on the other side of this over here is a river. Not too bad for an industrial area. Are y'all shaking your head at me? It says Atlantic right there. Now this is as far as we can go. There's the boat ramp in front of us. World's second steepest boat ramp. Hey, let's go see what's down this road. Bumps! That's a bumpy road, my friends. Look at this thing. That's where that short wheelbase comes in handy. Yeah, there is the river. That is the Nishnabotna. Woof, look at how old that bridge looks. I'm guessing it's seen better days. Ah, there's one set of tracks. There used to be 2. You can tell by the those foundations, the piers. You can tell that there used to be 2 sets of tracks on there. If this were my motorcycle, we'd go exploring back there. It would do it. I mean, it's really got some good manners, this bike does. All right, y'all, the battery looks like it's running out on the old camera. So I think I'm going to pull this to an end. The motorcycle is awesome to ride. It has good handling. It does this kind of stuff really well. It does 2-lane blacktop okay. Now, having said it does 2-lane blacktop okay, I do have a friend, he has a pair of these, and he and his son, they travel, well, they've been all over America on them. It's a lot of fun if you're into nostalgia. Its #1 feature is nostalgia. If you want a modern motorcycle, the reliability starts every time, always does what it's supposed to, but you want the ride of an old bike, handling, you know, but with good brakes and stuff like that, this would be the bike to get. If y'all are interested in a motorcycle like this one, or a newer used Royal Enfield Triumph classic British bike of any type, need parts, accessories, thingamajigs, doodads, anything like that, get yourself over to Baxter Cycle in Marnie, Iowa, the mighty metropolis of Marnie, Iowa. Those guys have got it all. Or go to baxtercycle.com. Make sure and tell them Fuzzy Biker sent you. Now, I think I'm going to run this motorcycle back and I'm going to head home. Life is good. Get out and ride if you can. Wahoo! Yippee-yi-yay! Yippee-yi-yo! Down the road we go. Beautiful, beautiful machine. Turn the radio on. 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 Beautiful day for a motorcycle ride. Ha 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 ha.